Good morning. Happy Monday. Welcome to Let's Make Cake. I'm your host, Michelle Pyle. And today I want to talk about okay, but how do I get better? Which for me was always kind of the problem. I just was like, I'm doing these things, but like, what actually is going to help me get better? Um, so kind of a good news, bad news is we don't actually know what is going to make you get better. But I didn't know what was going to make me get better. And I think that's probably the most frustrating thing, or one of the most frustrating things about depression and anxiety is the not knowing. The good news is we do know what works because other people get better. So we're able to use those examples and be like, okay, here are things that helped other people get better. We just don't know what's that secret combination of things that's going to help you get better. I think that's, oh, it's so frustrating. Because if you could just walk into a doctor's office and be like, okay, I have depression, I have anxiety, da da da, and they could be like, okay, here are the four things, and you will be better in 6 weeks. It's just this, it's that's not how it works. So you do have to be patient. You have to keep trying. You have to experiment, right? Which is like, oh, great. While I'm depressed, I have to, yeah, be patient, experiment, and try things. That is like one of the things that makes it so hard to get better is just there's an unknown element and you have to just keep trying until you find that secret or special, unique combination of things that will get you better. So it's experimenting, it's trying, and it's a combination. Also, this is really important. This is the whole philosophy behind Let's Make Cake. Not one ingredient makes a cake, right? So, not one thing is going to make you better. I know people will go on medication and be like, okay, I'll just take this medication and I won't do anything else. I say that because I did that before in my early 20s, I think, and thought I should get better, right? Because I'm taking this medication. But it's just, there's just not one thing that's going to work. And to, that's where the whole cake concept came from was you need lots of ingredients to make a new life, to get over depression, get over anxiety, and make a new life. And then the whole idea of the cake is let's at least try to make it fun while you're experimenting and trying things. So that's kind of the cake visual to help with that. Um, so okay, so that being said, right? So there's not one thing, and I'm gonna have to experiment. So you're gonna have to do two things, or this is what I had to do was learn, right? You have to learn what's out there that other people have done and are doing to get better. I will obviously bring you that information. That's one of the reasons I'm doing this. I've organized what I think are the best tools into this cake philosophy. So and you can check out my website, letsmakecake.org. There's sort of 4 tiers, and within that 13 layers, and within those layers, there's a bunch of different ingredients. But that was just a way for me to organize it. So definitely check that out. I'll be talking about all of them in these upcoming videos. So learning, and I'll bring you other resources that I've used, websites, books, etc. You do kind of just have to be like an open sponge and be like welcome information and take it in. And then the second part, right? So you've got the learning. The second part is then you have to take action, right? So I've also tried to just read the books and like magically get better. Well, that doesn't work, right? You have to like take concrete steps. I kind of like to organize when I'm thinking about what steps I'm going to take into three buckets. So, new habits that I want to like develop. So, just a really simple example is exercise, right? So, exercise is one of the ingredients proven to help people with depression and anxiety. Not a cure, but definitely one of, I'll probably talk about exercise the most because it really does help. Again, it doesn't cure, but it does help. But that's a habit, right? That you would want to develop. Then there's skills, because not everything is depression and anxiety. Some of it is just we haven't developed certain skills, life skills or interpersonal skills. The depression and anxiety make that even harder. But like if we can focus on learning certain skills, they will actually help alleviate depression and anxiety. But it's sort of a roundabout way of helping. And I always like to remind myself when I was doing this, even if I didn't have depression and anxiety, these are life skills that everybody needs. So it's not like it's just because you have depression. These are skills you're lacking, right? This is, you know, lots of people need to develop these skills. One example is boundaries, right? And you probably have heard about boundaries, setting boundaries with people, setting boundaries with yourself, and then letting other people set boundaries that they want for you, right? So it's all three of those components, but boundaries is just a skill that you need to develop and then bring to your relationships. And then I like to think of projects. So that's kind of the third bucket because that's bigger stuff, right? So, say you're trying to figure out your career, that's a project, right? So, that's going to be a long term thing you've got to work on, and you're going to need help and you're going to need resources, and it's going to take time. So, I kind of like to think about once you start deciding what things you want to experiment with, I like looking at those three buckets: habits, skills, and projects. Just as a way, because it can be overwhelming. I remember there was one point, like I had this giant piece of paper taped in my bathroom with just like 12 things written on it. And I was like, I guess these are the things I'm doing to help myself get better. Um, and it was just this random list I was working on of different things that had come up in my kind of process of learning and educating myself. But that was, yeah, that's how you do it. You're like, okay, I'm going to pick these things and I'm going to do them. And so then what you need is time and consistency. Um, Medication's another great example. They're like, well, you got to give it 6 weeks. So a lot of this stuff it's not like taking Tylenol or whatever, or cold medicine, right? It takes time. And that's really hard because if you're feeling crappy, you want to like get better fast. And that's also one of the hardest things is just the time involved with these tools, and consistency. So it's time plus consistency. As if time wasn't hard enough, you have to be consistent while you're waiting for that time to pass. Again, like frustrating, but it's okay. You can do it because I've done it. But yeah, if you're going to try something, you have to give it a chance and you have to do it enough that to actually see if it's going to work. So again, going back to exercise, you're going to want to do it more than once a week. Right? You're going to want to do it, a few times a week and over 6 weeks, and then kind of be like, okay, is this helping? So yeah, time plus consistency. And that's the technical side of this. And then I also like to just remind people there is magic, right, in all of this. So while you're doing the hard work and, applying what you're learning and developing new skills and habits, there's also like, randomly meeting a new person who introduces you to something that really is helpful. And that's the magic part. So don't, whether it's, the universe or God, or however you look at the world, that is a huge part of it too. It's not just going to be all on you, like your shoulders. When you start taking steps and taking action, God or the universe, again, whatever you believe, will meet you and like bring you what you need. I do fundamentally believe that. That's happened to me, and I know it will happen for you. Um, I'll give you an example. So, just to tell a short story about myself, I've always had suicidal ideation. I didn't even know that's what it was called. I was just like, yeah, I just randomly am suicidal. I don't know why. I've been that way for so long. I've had various psychiatrists and therapists and tried different medications, tried this, tried that. It was just something that never like permanently left me, right? It would come and go. It wasn't, like all the time, but and so I finally, again was in this I want to kill myself. Okay, find a psychiatrist, right? Because like you're changing, at least I was, you're changing jobs, your insurance is changing. So like I never had a consistent doctor. I think a lot of people have this problem. So I went online. I don't remember which program, but they offer you can meet with a psychiatrist. And pure chance and luck, the universe, God, brought me the best psychiatrist I've ever had in my entire life. And she was amazing and incredible. And we had that, like, I had that instant trust with her, which is really important. I think sometimes when we think about doctors, we don't when it comes to mental health and doctors, you do need to trust who you are talking to, or you're not going to tell them everything, which isn't helpful, right? They can't help you if you're not being honest, but it's hard to be honest with someone who you're like, don't feel that sense of trust with. So I did have that sense of trust with her right from the beginning. I'm sure based on things she said, but also just, again, I think the universe can just pair us with the right people. Anyway, I finally just kind of said what I may or may not have said in the past to doctors, like, "Oh, I've always been suicidal. It's not a big deal. Like, I know how to handle that. That's not my problem. My problem is depression." Like, these are real words that came out of my mouth. Because when you do live with it for so long, you are kind of like, "Yeah, yeah, I know how to handle that." And she um, really direct and to the point, reached into me and was like, "Yeah, that's actually not okay." I don't remember the exact words that she said, but it got me to stop and really be like, "Oh, this is kind of not okay." Anyway, so we had a lengthy conversation, and she got my whole medical history and all the various drugs I've been on. She put me on a medication that I had never tried, and in like less than a week, it was like switch flipped, and the suicidal ideation was gone for probably like the first time in my life, right? So this to me was the technical plus the magic, right? The technical is me taking the proper steps, visiting a doctor, et cetera, et cetera. And the magic is this right person coming in and seeing the help that I needed and getting me to sort of be super honest about what was actually going on. Um, so that's why you do have to keep trying, right? You can't just because you have a bad experience with one doctor, or say you tried exercise and you feel like it didn't work, don't give up completely, right? Try a different exercise, try a different doctor. So we want to keep an openness and be flexible, and keep trying. And then it wasn't just the medication, right? Some other things happened in my life at the same time. I ended up actually moving in with my aunt and cousin. And then my other cousin, the sister with that cousin, helped me get a job at her company, right? So this was like all these different things happening at once, right? So you got medication, a new living environment, and a new job, all things that I needed, right? I needed a new living environment because my aunt, my cousin really know how to make you feel like you're part of our family and you belong here. They're the kind of people who will go and do things, right? Like some people just seem to get that rhythm of life and they kind of bring you along. And that is transformative. You don't want to put a bunch of anxious people in one house together, which can happen. So this was a better living situation. And then the job, with the work itself, wasn't anything I was interested in, which is, I just needed a job, so that's okay. But the boss also had sort of an interest in mental health and things like that. So it was just, that's like the magic, right? So, like, and the combination of ingredients and the luck all and my hard work, like all of that come right, because I was doing other work, therapy, etc., that allowed those opportunities of living with new people and getting a new job even possible. So it's like all this stuff will kind of come together like baking and voila, you'll have a new cake, right? So like my hard work plus over time and being consistent and reaching out to a new doctor and then opportunities coming and me being ready for them, all of that coming together and really transforming my life. I didn't stay living with my aunt and cousin. I didn't stay in that job, and I'm not on that medication anymore that doctor put me on. But that period of a few months to 6 months was transformative, right? It was their transition periods is another way to look at them, right? So like when you're like, I'm here and I want to go there are going to be these transition periods along the way that are like mini launch pads. So like you get launched to the next, place where you're supposed to go until you get to where you want to be. It's like a process. You don't go from here to the end. And there's going to be a lot of people along the way who help you. That's just one example. I've had lots of other help. But yeah, so I wish, like, what I want is to be able to say it's 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 equals you're better. But obviously that's not the case. But don't get discouraged because that's not how it works. And that's where the whole cake concept came from. Because when I was, originally like, oh, it's going to take a lot of different things for me to get better, I was like, how can I look at this without being like even more depressed? And I was like, okay, look at it like a cake. You've got to gather ingredients, you need tools, you have to do the work, right? And then slowly but surely, you will get better. So that's just one part of my story. But I do think hearing other people's stories, I read articles about other people and things they did to get better. And it's funny because you're like, it's never the same story. So you have to find what your story is because it's not going to be the same as mine or the other people. But those stories will give you ideas. They'll give you motivation. There are just, I'll give you a few here, but I'll definitely do more for hearing how other people got better. So there are two comedians actually who do stand-up routines on a Netflix special. So one is Neil Brennan. So look up, he does a Netflix special and he talks about how he got better. Super amazing, inspiring, and hilarious. I think it's great to laugh at this stuff that is so serious and scary. Taylor Tomlinson, another comedian, also a Netflix special. Like, thank you, Netflix. She also talks about how she got better with her mental health stuff. So, and again, it's funny, right? So that's also wonderful. And then this book really helped me. So this is super specific, but Matt Haig, um, I think that's how you say his name, Reasons to Stay Alive. It's a book he wrote, and it's really, really helpful, especially if you struggle with suicidal ideation, suicidal thoughts, or um, suicidal, whatever feelings. Reasons to Stay Alive is a really good book. And those two Netflix specials that those comedians do, those are just three to. I love when comedians talk about this stuff because I think it's so heavy. It's nice to have people who know how to talk about it and help you laugh a little bit. Like, obviously, you're not going to laugh it away, but that's another ingredient, right? You've got to use humor to like get through all of this. And but yeah, other people's stories will help. So that's why I like telling my story. I'd love to hear your stories. When I find articles, I'll post them, because there was a guy I was reading, BBC probably again. He was talking about how he got better, and so, and everyone's using different tools and things like that. So you want to find what's going to help you, and so you do have to learn what's out there that's helped other people. Pick and choose a few things and then try them, and give it a chance. That's really like how to get better. It's frustrating in that there's no one answer. It's frustrating in that you do have to try and you have to experiment. It's frustrating in that you do need God or the universe to intervene and help you, because there were definitely periods where I was like, hello, does anyone want to help me? I'm just like laying here in bed, not knowing what to do. So I don't want to say like this is some easy thing, but it's possible. And it was really hard for me to believe that it was possible to get better. And I think that's totally normal to be like, yeah, this is just how it's going to be. But try to push past that. And if the first step is just reading about other people's stories to help you get like inspired, like this can actually happen, I can get better, do that, right? So if I'm not ready to take any steps, a step is hearing other people's stories, because you have to start like taking in that information in different ways, whether it's books or comedy specials, reading articles about other people, watching my videos, whatever it is. You want to start getting yourself to believe that it is possible to overcome depression, to overcome anxiety, and to make a new life. I don't believe in I don't hope this isn't controversial. I don't believe that we have to live with depression. I know some people are like, you just have it, you're always going to have it, and you're always going to have to manage it. I do think it's possible to get over it. That doesn't mean then you return to doing all the things you did before that maybe led you to depression, right? I still have to use all the tools and all the ingredients to maintain where I'm at. But I don't believe I live with depression anymore. That's just not something, I don't identify with that anymore. That's no longer who I am. And I believe that for you too. So yeah, so in upcoming videos, I will be talking about what I think all the best ingredients are. So like I said, I have it organized into these cake layers. That's just kind of, my brain likes to organize things that way. And so we'll talk about different ingredients and how to use them. But really it's the combination. Like once you put together 3 or 4 or 5, is kind of when the magic starts to happen. So, like, for example, let's say you're taking medication and that's all you're doing. You should consider exercising too, right? So, exercise plus medication. And then maybe you want to learn about boundaries and start applying those to your relationships. And so now you've got three big ingredients that you can put together because you want to get to like next levels, right? You don't just want to kind of inch along. You want to see results, right? And it's when you put these ingredients together that then it really moves you along kind of the path, so to speak. So I'll be talking about that as well. I think I covered everything today. I could real quick go just because it's I have more time. Maybe you do too. I could go over, or I will go over kind of the cake organization. So in the how to get better, um, I organized it this way because this makes sense to me. So I have this board that is my still learning the camera stuff here. So there's four sort of categories or tiers, if you will. Self, so that's me. Relationships, what I call living, and then what I call the human pursuits. And so within self, we have three layers: physiology and body chemistry. So that's where you're going to see me talk about exercise, but also medication, sleep, nutrition, etc. It's just the stuff that's happening inside your body that's affecting depression and anxiety. Um, it's not all in your head, right? Your body plays a part in it. Thoughts and feelings. So that's a huge one. This is something, just despite years of therapy, didn't get a lot of help with how to manage my thoughts and feelings. And then I don't know how many years ago I stumbled upon, I think it was an app or something. I'll have to find my notes. And done by a bunch of therapists, I think. They developed this app. And they kind of taught me things about thoughts and feelings that none of the amazing therapists I had seen through the years had taught me, right? Because talk therapy is great, you're talking, but like, give me some skills, right? Because I'm going to have to deal with this on my own most of the time. And so there are real concrete tools and skills you can learn to manage your thoughts and your feelings in new ways. That's very exciting. I went from feeling like I was in a prison with my thoughts and feelings, and I thought, oh, I guess I'm just crazy, and I, just can't handle my emotions, or maybe you've been called super sensitive your whole life, or whatever, maybe you have a temper, whatever. There are just tangible skills you can learn and apply and suddenly feel sane and rational and able to manage your thinking and your feelings, like groundbreaking stuff here. I believe it probably falls under cognitive behavioral therapy, which I don't know that I ever specifically saw a therapist who was in that sort of school of thinking. So that's probably why. The third ingredient is healing, right? So this is going to be things that happen to you, situations you put yourself in, things you did to other people, right? This is the stuff that's not fun to talk about. Things you may never talk to anyone about except a therapist. But there's not just therapy that can handle healing. There's other tools. So we'll talk about those, but under the category of healing, whether it's your childhood or whether it's stuff that happened last week, healing is super important. And when you develop kind of the skills for like how to deal with stuff, as you're going like on in life, you'll get better and better at dealing with bad stuff that happens quicker. And so it won't build up and become this sort of implosive situation. So that's really cool too. It's not only dealing with stuff in the past, but it's like, how do I develop tools to like heal from stuff that happens as it happens? So moving into that second tier, relationships, we have three more ingredients. So 4, 5, and 6. 4 is boundaries. Mentioned this already, but boundaries in relationships are huge. Boundaries go both ways. So you're going to want to know what other people's boundaries are. So it's not just, boundaries you don't want people to cross, but also it goes both ways. So I think that's important. And then boundaries you want to set with yourself. Social satisfaction. This kind of covers a lot, but I like thinking about it in this terminology of social satisfaction because we are social creatures. Even me, an introvert, super introverted, I have social needs. And so it's really just figuring out how do I feel socially satisfied. And in here can be family, love, marriage, all that good stuff, friendship, community. Uh, it's a really diverse range of relationships that you want to figure out how to develop and figure out what you want and what you need in order to feel socially satisfied. Because that's a fundamental, it's like in our DNA as humans that we need to feel satisfied socially. The sixth thing layer is creating positive experiences. Seems super obvious. But if you have depression or anxiety, sometimes you're so focused on managing that you forget like you're supposed to have positive experiences with people. So I'll talk about that, like, rituals, traditions, and then just small stuff. So, but figuring out how to be more oriented towards creating positive experiences with the people in your life. I know it sounds super simple, but yet it's something a lot of us suck at. So heading into the next tier or category, I just call living. So this is going to be layers 7, 8, 9, and 10. So 7, I have loosely right now just calling this is living. And this covers figuring out what you want and how to deal with problems, right? So those are two kind of components of life that you're always going to have to be grappling with, right? You're always going to have problems. So you want to figure out how to manage problems, like what are skills around that. And then asking yourself, like, what is it that I really want? What do I want to work for, struggle for? I think when we're in survival mode with depression and anxiety, especially if you've dealt with it for a long time, you haven't even thought about what you want, right? Because there's no time for that. You're just like, I'm surviving. So we want to kind of get out of that and start thinking about what kind of life do I want to create? What does that look like? 8, 9, and 10 are homework and finances. So kind of fundamental stuff there. What's your home? Where's your home? Who are you living with? What does that look like? How can we make sure that's a healthy, positive experience? Work, big one, lots of components to that. And finances, same thing. So we'll just talk about how do we manage that stuff when things come up, or, what resources are available, because those are big, right? Like if you're like, I don't know what I want to do for a career and I don't have any money, like those two things can make depression and anxiety 100 times worse. So we're just going to tackle those head on. So then heading into the fourth tier or category, the human pursuit, right? So this is going to be the lofty stuff, right? The thing that makes us human and not just animals. So that's going to be layers 11, 12, and 13. So love, because I do think that's a fundamental part of being human, is love. So I'm going to talk a lot about that. 12 layer 12 is your gifts, right? So like you do have gifts even if you can't see them right now, but your gifts, and how to share those with the world and why that's important and how that will help you feel like you have a place in all of this crazy world we live in. And 13, master passion or passions. So just talking about, how do you develop kind of more than a hobby, but like something that like really excites you. Some people, they're able to connect it to work. Some people aren't, but whether you do or don't, you still have this and want to develop this, and that's super important too. So that's kind of the whole cake structure. Within those 13 layers, there are lots of ingredients. I haven't actually counted how many ingredients there are in total because I don't want to scare anybody or scare myself. So you can see like there's a lot there. We're going to go through it all. And that's in that content is where you're going to start to pull out habits and skills and projects, right? So you might pick, here are 5 habits I want to develop over the next 6 months. Here are 5 skills I want to learn and apply over the next 6 months. And here are 5 projects I want to work on over the next 2 years, right? Because projects are bigger, like career, for example. And yeah, we can work on that together. Therapists can help you with all this stuff. They're super wonderful. There's lots of resources out there that I'll bring you. So yeah, how do I get better? Well, we don't know specifically, but we do know here are all the things, and you get to figure out what helps you. So you get to kind of experiment and try and give things a chance and find that combination of things that helps you get better. And I'll be here along the way to encourage you. It can be frustrating. I mean, I definitely went through periods where I was like, I'm doing everything. Why am I not better? So trust me, whatever you feel or think, I have probably felt or thought. So that is one of the main reasons I want to do this, is to help you not lose hope, right? Like to keep at it, to keep going, to not give up, because you can get better and you can make a new life. One of the reasons I like to talk about making a new life, and maybe everyone doesn't feel this way, but I felt this way. I would wake up. It wasn't always just depression and anxiety, right? Sometimes I was just like, this can't be my life, like where I was, because depression and anxiety affects every aspect of your life. I mean, it's really sucky. You can wake up and realize none of this is where I'm at is not what I want, who I'm surrounded by, where I'm living, what I'm doing, any of it. Like all of this is just a dumpster fire of not what I want. Okay, now what? And that was so scary. It was like, this can't be my life, but I don't know how to figure out what my life should be. What are the steps? And so that's all baked into the cake. Sorry, bad joke. But that is part of my cake concept, right? It's not just getting over depression. It's not just getting over anxiety. You have to make something. You have to make a life that looks like what you want. And so that's going to be a huge part of what I talk about is, right? Like, what does social satisfaction look like to you? And let's figure that out. And how do we do that? And how do we play around? And what resources are out there to help us? It's more than just, I'm an introvert, I'm an extrovert, or go, date, right? There's so much more to it than that. So we'll talk about all that. But yeah, you want a life that feels good, that feels like, yeah, this is who I am. This this makes sense. I know how to do this. And so that's what we're going to do. That's what Let's Make Cake is all about. So I'm really, if you're watching this, super happy. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Um, I'm really excited to keep talking about this stuff. I think about it all the time. So it's good for me to finally be talking about it instead of just thinking about it. Because, yeah, there's a lot out there. So let's tackle it together and come up with something great for you. And yeah, that's today's show. How do I get better? So let's do this thing. All right. Hope you have a great Monday, and I'll see you tomorrow on Tuesday. Thanks, guys. Bye.